Okay folks, Brian here from North Wind Garage. We got this DiBlasi folding scooter here. They're made in Italy. Here we go. One of my viewers had asked me to do a video on repairing the kickstarter. This one does not work. As you can see, you kick on it. If you go down and move the little gear with your finger, it'll catch. Sometimes. Sometimes. Like so. So, with that being said, I ordered the parts to repair that. Now I'm going to take this clutch off. Okay folks, hopefully I won't get rained out here. Essentially, in order to get into this kickstarter, you have to get the clutch, CV clutch. This is a combination of a clutch and a constant. It's kind of like a snowmobile setup. It's designed so when the clutch grabs this assembly here, this will squeeze the belt and change the diameter of the pulley or sheave to change the speed range on it. And it does that through centrifugal force in conjunction with centrifugal clutch. So when I have this off, I'll show you a little more on it. But anyway, moving forward here, in order to work on this, you need a 6 millimeter Allen bit. On this is on my scooter. I don't know what your scooter might have a nut there instead. This is an older style clutch on here, and they sell two different types for the scooter. This is right hand thread. Left is loose, right is tight, and then it just comes out of here like that. Now I digress. I've had this apart because I've had to put a belt on it, and I had to inspect it for other parts I need to order for it. So the clutch assembly would normally look like that. That one is busted. It's not the right one. I'm going to have to either modify this one because the parts come from Germany, and I'm not going to spend that kind of money to get another one. I think I'm going to modify that one, but if we don't get rained out here. It doesn't take long to do this, folks. Okay, so you have to remove the clutch, and there's a little spacer in there on this model, little tiny spacer, and you just pull the clutch off. You might have to work with this a little bit, but don't pry against the back because you'll bend that pulley. So you'll have to try to get it off there without bending that. Now you'll see the spring release here. So you can push on this for reinstalling that and then taking it off. That's how you do that. And then this just comes off like that. Now, like I said, this is left-hand thread, the back part of this sheave. So you want to go right to loosen, left to tighten on this. It's left-hand thread. Okay, so this clutch comes apart like this. And there's a set of springs in there, so when this spins, those springs fly out and they move up on this taper, thus changing the angle of that pulley like that when that flies out. and the clutch grabs the inner parts of this and causes that to happen. So that's how that works. Now, to the Kickstarter portion. So there's a little gear in here. There's a little gear in here that you have to get behind, like this, with a little punch. And just lightly tap that and it'll come right off. At least mine did, like so. Now these are all the new parts that I put in. So there you have it. And let's come over here where we can see. So this is the Kickstarter return spring. This is the stationary Kickstarter gear, and this is the sliding Kickstarter gear, okay? These are the ones I took out. Now, this is the old spring. This is the new spring. The new spring looks like that. And this spring is not very heavy duty, folks. It's kind of light duty. You might want to have a couple of them in stock. So keep that in mind. Okay, what was happening with this is this little gear was not coming out and meshing into this little gear because the spring was non-existent. This is the old spring. That's what was in there. Okay, so that spring comes together like this on the shaft, and it's grabbed by the Kickstarter gear, which is right here. This gear comes up and grabs it. Okay? This gear right here will come up and grab that gear I just showed you. Now we're going to put this all back together, but I want to give you an idea of what we're looking at here. So come on this side. So this is this spring right here, okay? Now, I repaired that. I did some work on it, but it goes into a hole on the bottom here. This part goes into a hole on the bottom in here, and then this part goes around the Kickstarter lever. Okay, so there's no problem with that on my scooter. So I'm not going to mess with that. That's all working. And this gear here, the teeth are all pretty good in it. So I'm not going to mess with it. It's a little rusty, it's not pretty, but the gears are all in good shape. So I don't need to do anything with that, or this. So what I'm going to do, just replace what parts I need to. And that would entail this little spring, the sliding Kickstarter gear, and the stationary Kickstarter gear, okay? These are usable, and I think they show somewhere, this one more than the other, and that's the one that gets beat up the most in the spring. So the problem here is the spring. What's happening is the spring is not coming out to engage the Kickstarter gear here. So that's that gear. Now that slides on there. I'm not putting any lubricant in there because it's just going to attract dirt. And this one just sits there and turns on the shaft. That's why it's called the stationary gear. Okay, so when the shaft turns, that turns, and then the spring just holds it against it, and essentially this just sits here and rumbles while the engine is running. Okay, the gears are cut in such a way they go one direction and they engage in the opposite direction. So like that. Now I looked in some DiBlasi information on the interwebs and all that, and there's actually a washer that goes behind this, and I don't have it, but I'm going to keep my eye out for one and see if I can find one without having to go to Germany to order the parts and pay the tariff and the shipping and all that. So I'm just going to put this back together like this. So there you have it. The sliding or the non-stationary gear goes in first. It's actually the spring. The washer would go in first. The spring goes in next. And then you have the sliding kickstarter gear. And then you have the stationary kickstarter gear. And then put your clutch back together. Actually, you don't even need to take this apart. I got some bearings coming for it on Amazon, and we'll put them in another video. Okay, so when you're putting this back together, you want to make sure you put your belt on, because otherwise you'll have to do it twice. So you just put this back together the same way it came apart, and it goes back together relatively easy here. Just take some of the tension off the spring here, the spring right down in here by pushing here, and just give that a wiggle. Okay. Now, when you're putting this back together, don't forget your little spacer. Little spacer goes in here like this. Now, it looks like my bearing kind of moved a little bit, so I'm going to just push that right back in there. Put the spacer in. And for purposes of demonstration here, I'm going to put the old clutch back in. I have to figure out what I'm going to do with that. I don't know if I'm going to try to modify the one that came or try to get the new one that actually goes on this scooter. So that's another video. So for purposes of getting the Kickstarter going, just going to thread that in there. Take my 6mm Allen. Okay, now you don't want to get to hammering on this a whole lot. Just cinch it down. A couple taps with the impact and you're all set. Okay, now the moment of truth. Give this a quick test. All right, folks, I'm not going to start it. Obviously the Kickstarter works, and it didn't work before. So that'll be it for this video. Thanks for tuning in. There'll be more videos coming on this DiBlasi scooter. Hopefully we'll get it back up and road ready. DiBlasi Kickstarter gear replacement. Northwind Garage, peace out, and God bless you.